Record.
Good morning, friends. This is Prakash Sharma, Chairman of Banking, Financial Services and Insurance Committee. Honorable Deputy Controller and Chairman Audit Board, Sri R.G. Vishwanathan ji, respected Honorable Executive Director of RBI, Sri Rohit Jain ji, Honorable President of ICI, respected Nihal Jambu Saria ji, Honorable Vice President of ICI, respected Dr. Devashish Mitra ji, Chairman of PDC Committee, Shri Babu Abraham ji, Vice Chairman of Honorable Deputy Controller and Insurance Committee, I welcome you all in this morning session on new norms issued by the Reserve Bank of India on NBFCs. Friends, I will like to place and I also like to sorry this unit is on behalf of our courts, our and Rohit Jain ji, who is to COVID affects in last few years, regulatory authorities of our country, it may be either RBI, CAG, NAFRA, IRDA, insolvency, even CBD, CBIT, right reforming concerning various guidelines. It's regularly just a clear indication. If we have to remain in the profession, we have to continuously update our knowledge on both the fronts, that is, towards various in different acts, norms, guidelines, and at the same time, technologically also taking this ourselves. Just 2 days back, friends, we were having one set of Mr. P.R. Ramesh, who is the ex-chairman of the. He was of very serious concern of the opinion that due to technological changes, audit profession will not be of CS only. So that's a very serious remarks which he forwarded. I will also like to mention both the regulators, particularly the Bank of India and see issues various guidelines that we may prepare ourselves if which was circulars guidelines are coming, they are well within we are giving us a reasonable time to prepare ourselves. Friends, very soon we are going to face a new act, that is labor laws. That is going to change in our profession, industry also. And within 1 year, we will be working on 5G technology. The moment we will be working on 5G technology, it will bring major impact in our day-to-day lives and in our profession also. To inform you, the guidance of our President Sir and Vice President Sir, we are bringing for our members to face the technical changes efficiently. Those are audit documentation tool, data analytics tool, practice management tool, and digital library. So we are trying at our institute level, at our members, trying to give them also what we can do. We are doing that. Not taking much of the time, I will like to call Vice Chairman of Banking Committee to address the gathering.
Thank you, Prakash Bhai. But what I think that for the inaugural session, I will propose vote of thanks. Now several dignitaries are available, so let them speak. I think Chairman PDC is also available, CA Babu Abram Kalliwaili. So I would request Babu Bhai to have an address.
Distinguished chief guest of today's webinar and the Honorable Deputy Controller and Auditor General of India, coordinating commercial coordination and local bodies, Sri R.G. Viswanathanji, the Honorable Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India, Rohit Jainji, my Honorable Vice President, Sri Dr. Debashish Mitraji, I think Honorable President Nihar Jambusari is to join, and Director Commercial P&AG Ridhika Bhattyaji, who is also a member in the Central Council of the Institute, nominated by the Government of India, and Chairman of the committee, my very eminent colleague in the council, Prakash Sharmaji, Chandrasekhar Chitleji, Honorable Past President of the Institute, CA Amrut Chopraji. I'm extremely glad and delighted Prakash Sharmaji, the Banking Committee has taken initiative in organizing one of the important topic in enlightening the members about the new guidelines on the appointment of auditors by banks, Reserve Bank, non-banking financial companies and housing financial companies. And sir, as you know, the Professional Development Committee is one of the important arm of the Institute, which was constituted way back in 1962 by the Institute. And the new, I should congratulate the Reserve Bank of India for coming out with the new guidelines, which has been acknowledged and appreciated by the chartered accountant community across the country, and it will give a better level playing field for all chartered accountants in the country, and I'm sure these norms will go a long way in definitely enhancing the audit quality, the application involvement of in capacity building of among chartered accountant firms, and with the mergers and increased scope, the minimum number of statutory central auditors may be prescribed. Now the maximum number is being prescribed in the norms, which we suggest that instead of maximum auditors, the minimum number of auditors should be prescribed, so that any misuse of the norm may not be allowed. And compulsory cooling of 3 years of statutory central auditors in public sector banks should be mandated across all public sector banks, instead of within the bank. As per the present norms, it is within the bank. That may be should be made applicable to. I think my Honorable Vice President will be touching upon all these points. Then I don't want to repeat. I think I would leave it to the wisdom of the, and I should thankfully acknowledge our meeting with the Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, Honorable M.K. Jainji, attended by Rohit Jainji, and also the CGM, wherein we discussed about the revision of audit fee of the banks as well as the new norms. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you. Over to Prakash ji.
Thank you, Babu Bhai. Friends, we are having our Vice President of the Institute today, whose name is Dr. Devashish Mitra. I name understand. He has done his PhD on a topic in the IFS. He's also a company secretary, ICWA, law graduate. He's done DISA also, and former president of the Institute of Internal Auditors. Friends, we are very lucky. We are going to have first time in our country World Congress conference in Bombay, and we will be having that in the Devashish Mitra. So I will not take much of the time and request Dr. Devashish Mitra to give his word of thanks.
Thank you very much, Prakash, for your kind words of introduction. Sri R.G. Vishwanathan, Deputy Controller and Auditor General, Commercial Coordination and Local Bodies, CAG's Office. Sri Rohit Jain ji, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India. Ritika Bhatia ji, our Council CAG. My respected President Nihal and Jambu ji. And of course, the Prakash Sharma ji, the chairman of this banking financial services and information. Chandrasekhar Chitle ji, the vice chairman, and Babu Abraham, the chairman of PDC, who just now spoke, and of course Amarjit Chopra ji, who has also joined, past president of the institute. A very good afternoon to all of you. It's a great pleasure that to be addressing dignitaries like yourself, sir. And let me tell you, on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, I welcome Vishwanath Jain-ji, Ritika Bhatia ji in our midst. And I'm sure, your viewpoints will be noted by us as we go ahead. Now, first of all, regarding this revised norms for appointment of auditors issued by RBI. I'm sure Rohit Jain-ji will recall that we had a meeting with his good self on the 25th of May, along with the Deputy Governor, along with the CGM. And there we said that as long as the institute is concerned, we are totally with RBI on this. When RBI talks about joint audit, when RBI talks about imposing restrictions on number of audit, when RBI talks about harmonizing the norms for the appointment of statutory auditors, and when the RBI talks about creating a larger pool of auditors, and when RBI talks about audit quality, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India is totally in agreement with those views. And over a period of time, let me tell you that we have worked very closely with CAG and RBI. And it has been our great privilege of having worked so closely with them. The issues that Mr. Babu Abraham have already raised regarding imposing the minimum number of auditors for the audit of for the audit of banks, that aspect may kindly be considered. And we would not raise any other issue today. We just want to hear but 2 or 3 points regarding the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. R.G. Vishwanathan sir, you will be aware that we are the second largest accounting body in the world. And we also take pride in being a partner in nation building. And today in the audit scenario, there will be great change because of the technological disruptions that we are going to face. Because of that, we have a separate board called Digital Accounting and Assurance Standards Board, which is doing a lot of study on artificial intelligence, blockchain, data analytical tools, cyber security, to see to what extent these will affect us, and to ensure that the profession is ready to not only face these changes, but to take advantage of these changes as it goes ahead in conducting the assurance services. So we are working very, very hard, knowing that these will be great disruptors as long as we are concerned. Sir, audit quality has been also a matter of a lot of discussion between ICAI, CAG, and RBI. And at the Institute, we are totally committed to seeing that the audit quality is never compromised. And towards that end, with the Institute, in the last council meeting, we have approved the audit quality indicators. Now, this is as part of the audit quality maturity models. Now, what these indicators do, these are all self-evaluation tools that an audit firm, you see, suppose there are about 160 indicators or more than that. The audit firm, you see self-evaluates itself based on these indicators and finds out where exactly it stands vis-a-vis quality of audit. And based on that, the audit firm, you see, with the guidance of the Institute, tries to further improve the quality of audit so that it can live up to the expectations of RBI and amongst other stakeholders. So that is something, sir, we are trying to push very hard, because at the Institute, we are extremely committed towards ensuring the audit quality. You are both of Mr. Vishwanath and Rohit Jain sir and Ms. Bhatia would be well aware that, you see, the auditing standards that we have in the Institute, you see, 46 of them are there now. We are propagating those auditing standards. We are ensuring that all the branches in India, they organize programs on these auditing standards, with special stress on standard on quality control. That is the SQC1. We are trying our best to see that that is done. So, you see, technology, we are doing everything possible. Quality of audit, we are doing everything possible. Now, the other area is, moving away. Today, both of you, sirs, will be aware that, you see, the expectation is not only on financial reporting, but also on non-financial reporting. SEBI has made that, you see, there should be a business responsibility reporting for 1,000 top listed companies. It is recommendatory in the initial stages. And we have, you see, developed this Sustainability Reporting Standards Board. Now, what does this Sustainability Reporting Standards Board is doing? It is developing the standards. For example, it is developing standards on environment. We are nudging our professionals to look into areas beyond profit. We are nudging our professionals to look into areas on, say, people, on planet. So those are the areas in which we are moving, sir. So that, you see, we are, you see, relevant with the requirements of the changing times. So that is also an area, the sustainability reporting which we are doing, and we are extremely proud of doing so much of, hard work on that. The last one which I wanted to highlight before all of you would be the forensic audit. Sir, you see, we are on the verge of developing 24 forensic audit standards. And again, the Institute would like to see, nudge its members and push them towards this newer area of forensic audit, which to our mind is an emerging area and very important area. Both CAG and RBI does talk to us about frauds, and we want to ensure that our membership is totally well qualified to work in a situation where there will be frauds and where the expectation is they report on these frauds. Sir, you see, at the Institute, we take pride in working very closely with both RBI and CAG. We have worked very closely with both these organizations in the past. And in the future, sir, we have every desire and we are totally committed to working hand in hand and shoulder to shoulder with both RBI and CAG in our common goal of being a partner in nation building, sir. So once again, thank you very much to Mr. Vishwanathan and to Mr. Jain and to Ms. Bhatia for your kind presence amongst us. And we look forward to having this kind of interactions, you see, more frequently as we go ahead. And Prakash ji, once more, hearty congratulations for organizing this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Devashish Mitra ji, for your wonderful delivery. And then I request my president of our institute, before inviting Nihar Bhai, our president, let me share with you his devotion that he is going to deliver his lecture from the hospital itself. You can understand how much he is devoted. You see, sir, after 44 years, a member from industry has become president of our institute. And one quality which we rarely see in a person, which you never find, you rarely find a person that who is always normal in all conditions. It is my 6th year with Nihar Bhai sir, but I have never seen him getting angry. He's always very simple, very cool and calm, speaking always in a very, very simple way. And you can see the way in this tough time, the examinations are going on of our CA profession due to Supreme Court's guidelines also. We have to take so many precautions. Everything is going on very smoothly, very comfortably. And at the same time, I would like to thank Niharji and his leadership that we have shifted a reasonable, very good amount for our members due to all those members who are having a problem due to COVID. We are helping them whatever manner we can do. Even for the students, we have waived the fees of those students whose parents have died due to COVID problem. And we are trying in all the field to help our members. I just shared with you that we are coming up with 4 softwares. For that, we have particularly kept 50 crore rupees for all those 4 software, which will be bringing for our members. So not taking much of the time, I request our president of the institute, Nihar Jambacharya sir.
Thank you, Prakash ji. Vice President of the Institute, CA Dr. Debashish Mitra, Viswanathan ji, Rohit Jain ji, Rikit Bhatia ji, but past President of the Institute, CA Amarjit Chopra ji, CA Babu Abraham, my colleague, Vice Chairman of this committee, CA Chandrasekhar Chitle, and all those who are attending. Vice President has given complete overview of what is happening at the Institute. So I may only reassure that whether it is technology, whether it is knowledge regarding audit, whether it is quality of audit, at the Institute, all capacity building measures the Institute is taking, and you will never find Institute wanting in building the capacity of the firms who are going to deliver these audits to you. Through these new RBI guidelines, it is understood that even RBI has encouraged the large pool of firms to come enter the field of audit and deliver quality audit. On the other hand, we will do everything to see that these firms achieve the kind of knowledge and skills that they are required to have. On technology fronts, everything we have done in the last 2 years particularly. We are developing audit tools which will be readily provided to members, and they will be very handy in delivering quality audit and do the documentation. Apart from this, the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board has taken up various intensive courses where the members are trained on technology, the way they should practically deliver, and the hands-on training is being given. So the step that RBI has taken will definitely yield results, and you will have very big pool of firms to select for the purpose of audit. And even at the Institute, we will have the satisfaction that these firms will be delivering these quality audits. Thank you for inviting, and thank you for joining through this particular webinar. The intention is to see that all the members are aware of what are the new responsibilities, what are the new opportunities, what kind of training they require to undergo. And since there is 1 year at our disposal, during this period, the way we regularly train our members for bank branch audits, we'll keep training them on a very regular basis. Only one point at RBI which is pending, and I assume that they will quickly act on it, and that is raising audit fee. The audit fee was last raised 8 years back, and we are very much expecting that for the year 2021, the audit fees will be raised and will be raised as per expectations. So with this, thank you for inviting me. It was pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, President Sir, for your delivery, especially even in the hospital. Thanks a lot, sir. Not taking much of the time. Before inviting Executive Director of Reserve Bank of India, Shri Rohit Jain ji, first I will only like to request, Sir Rohit Sahab, you were a little bit away. My President had only requested for one thing, that from last September, there was there was the information that the increase of audit fees is on very active this thing. So if you can, we were expecting in last week that declaration. So we'll be happy if you will be able to mention about that. I will not take any other issues. My other colleagues have taken those issues. I would like to just give brief introduction of ED sir. Shri Rohit Jain ji is a career central banker and is currently posted as Executive Director with Reserve Bank of India. As an Executive Director, Shri Jain looks after Department of Supervision, that is very, very important, which includes risk analytics and vulnerability assessment also. Prior to being promoted as Executive Director, Shri Rohit Jain ji was Chief General Manager in charge in Department of Supervision. Shri Jain ji has cross-functional experience of over 3 decades with the Reserve Bank of India across policy making and supervision of banks, NBFCs, and urban cooperative banks, banking operations, human resources management, etc. Shri Jain has served as RBI nominee director on the board of a private bank. He was member secretary to the RBI working group on cross-border supervision and supervisory cooperation. He was also officially deputed to the Bank of Mauritius, the Central Bank of Mauritius, as an advisor. In the area of banking supervision, he has been associated with the various on-site inspections, off-site surveillance, and has led various scrutinies and investigations. Shri Jain's current areas of responsibility include the audit regulation group of the Department of Supervision, which is very, very important and directly linked to our profession. This group is also responsible for formulating audit policies and supervisory guidelines vis-a-vis banking sector and non-banking financial sector in the country. Shri Jain holds a master's degree in commerce and a master's in business administration. He is also a certified associate of Indian Institute of Banking and Finance, that is CAIIB, and holds the international certificate in banking risk and regulation. So over to Rohit Jain sir, please.
Thank you, Prakash ji. I hope I am audible.
Yes,
Yes,
very
sir.
much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, Vishwanathan ji, Nihar Jambasuriya ji, Devashish Mitra ji, Prakash Sharma ji, Chandrasekhar Tale ji, Babu Abraham ji, Amarjit Chopra ji. Very good afternoon to all of you and to all the participants. At the outset, let me thank the Institute for holding this webinar and for inviting me to give a brief address on the RBI thinking with respect to certain recent developments. My address will be very brief. I just want to give a few messages to the Institute and to all the participants and to apprise them of some of the intent of the recent developments. So, as you would have seen, the last 1.5 years have been difficult for all of us under COVID, and Reserve Bank has been fully engaged in addressing the issues coming out of the pandemic in different various areas. These include monetary measures, liquidity measures, various regulatory and supervisory measures. And the whole intent during the last 1.5 years has been that we should continue to have financial stability in the system. And the financial and operational resilience of all our financial entities should continue to be maintained. There should not be any disruptions. The banks and NBFCs should be able to support the economy. They should continue to perform their financial intermediation role. And whatever relief we can provide to the people of our country, the RBI has pushed the institutions to support the people, their customers, so that some of the adverse impact of the pandemic could be mitigated to some extent at least. In this role, the RBI values the partnership that it looks for from the Institute of Chartered Accountants and and the important role that all the statutory auditors play in conducting the audit of our various institutions. I would like to thank the entire audit community for being able to manage their audit responsibilities and engagements despite all the trouble and inconveniences that COVID had thrown up, which did not allow in many cases for physical verification or physical visit to various offices. Despite that, the entire audit community has performed their role in time and has maintained the quality despite all the challenges that came their way. So I would like to thank the Institute and all the auditors for the excellent work that they have done and the responsibilities that they have fulfilled despite these present times. We value the partnership role for the Institute, and RBI has been engaging with the Institute in recent times. We would like to further increase the level of engagement and interaction that we have with the Institute, and we will think of certain ways in which the interaction can be more frequent, and with respect to implementing some of the RBI's role expectations from the auditors, we would like to associate more closely with the Institute and its professional development committee so that the auditors can be informed better of some of the expectations of RBI. The statutory audit, as we all know, is an extremely important function. It is vital in maintaining market confidence and in financial stability, and that is why we value it immensely. And we see it as a complementary role that auditors play to the supervisory role that the RBI performs. With respect to an issue Prakashji raised about the audit fees revision, let me just give some clarity on that so that all of you have been raising this issue for some time, and I know that there has been some time that has been taken by us to process this, but it is in the almost the final stages and we are just giving the final touches, and I think we should be able to do it at the earliest. So
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
I would request you to for your patience, a little more patience on this, but we will be coming out with the revised structure. Just 2-3 points I would like to make. One is about the long form audit report, which was revised format was released in September 20. I hope that it has been more useful for the auditors and for the stakeholders in the way in which it has been now redesigned, give focus on certain elements, including the reporting on internal financial controls and the better coverage of various risks that the LFAR is supposed to report. If there are any feedback or suggestions that or any of you would like to give to us on the LFAR format, we would request you to kindly send in your suggestions.
Sir, it is very comprehensively. Only I would like to say one point. Sir, we have made one group and we had given the request to them. We just want to give there. It is fantastic LFR, very comprehensive. But there are 3-4 issues. We had made one group in the chairman in the convenership of our Amarjit Chopra ji only. So whenever you will give us time, there are only 2-3 points we would like to share with you. That's all, sir.
Sure, Prakashji. We will engage with you on these issues which you have to suggest. On this recent circular that has been issued on April 27, followed by a FAQ that we released with respect to the guidelines for appointment of statutory central auditors and statutory auditors of banks, NBFCs and UCBs. Let me just briefly give what was the idea or the intent behind issuing such guidelines. The RBI has been given the legal powers now as per recent BR Act amendment to to decide and fix certain norms for not only banks but also for the NBFCs and the UCBs. And our idea has been to harmonize some of the regulations, not entirely, but as felt necessary and to the extent desirable, to fix certain minimum norms on eligibility criteria, selection criteria, and certain aspects with respect to the tenure, the rotation policy, all of these things, so as to have a minimum level of uniformity and consistency across financial institutions with the way in which auditor appointments happen and the minimum level of audit quality standards that can be maintained by virtue of specifying certain minimum criteria. And there have been a lot of media reports, there have been a lot of expression of various views, some in favor, some against, and that reflects a very healthy position where various stakeholders come out with their views and express and freely express their concerns wherever they feel so. But the RBI role has been that we have considered all such reservations that came, all the misapprehensions that were there, and all of these were considered duly. And post that, we have released the FAQ, which does give certain concessions in the sense of explaining certain things, but the broad intent and the rationale for issuing of these guidelines has been maintained. And the idea broadly is that we should have ownership neutral regulations, ensure further the independence of auditors, avoid the conflict of interest in auditor appointments, and broadly that we should be able to see that the appointment of auditors is done in a timely, transparent, and effective manner. And there are various provisions in that circular which I will not detail, but we have introduced the concept of joint audit for bigger entities, and this is something new which has come, and we hope it will work better for the bigger institutions. We are also providing a level playing field to all the auditors by treating firms under a network as one entity, putting a cap on the number of entities that can be audited in a year, and placing some restrictions on audit and non-audit work in group entities. And we believe that all of these measures will go a long way in improving the audit quality and ensuring full independence for the auditors, which is a prerequisite to ensure good quality audit. We would like to thank the Institute for all the support that they gave Reserve Bank in the context of issue of these guidelines and for understanding the intent and the rationale for coming out with such guidelines. And that support is very much acknowledged. These guidelines also give a lot more importance to the audit committees of the boards of all the financial entities so that they can, in a free and objective manner, exercise their authority, ensure that auditors get necessary voice to express their opinion. And we have also seen that the audit committee should be constituted of totally independent directors so that there is no influence of executive management on the audit committees. Some of the key expectations of RBI from auditors, these we have discussed earlier also, and we continue to say that knowledge and competence upgradation is something that all of us have to continuously engage in because the environment is complex, it is dynamic, and there are developments all around, especially in technology area, newer means of accounting that are being used now, and the knowledge and competence is something that will have to be a continuous effort by everybody concerned. The objectivity and independence for audit function is a sine qua non because without that the auditors will not be able to function effectively. Some amount of professional skepticism is necessary for auditors to be able to challenge executive management on some of the assumptions or some of the decisions that they take, the adherence to standards of auditing and various guidelines issued by ICI is a must for all auditors. With respect to the divergence in uh, uh, asset classification norms and provisioning requirements, this was an issue which was repeatedly getting highlighted in last few years, and we had, as a measure, taken certain steps to communicate to the institute some of the major reasons for such divergence between the assessment of RBI and that of the auditors. And we are grateful to the institute for having circulated this to the auditor community and for including it in their guidance note on bank audits. And I believe that this has been useful for everybody concerned. And we would just like to emphasize on all the auditors that divergence has to be minimized. And our appetite for tolerating divergence has come down considerably because it reflects either poor systems in the entity concerned or maybe lack of application of the control authorities in ensuring that the RBI norms are strictly followed. And as you would know, we have mandated system-based NPA classification by all banks by 30th June. That timeline is already over. We have done an assessment recently, and most entities have told that they have implemented or they are on the verge of implementing this. We will be doing a fresh assessment shortly to see how effectively they have built the system-based NPA classification system. But from the auditor side, we would request to verify and check how well developed that system has been made and whether it will ensure full compliance to the RBI guidelines. Finally, this communication between supervisors and auditors is extremely important, and that is why you would be aware that we quarterly, on a quarterly basis, the supervisory teams engage with the auditors of each institution so as to exchange views, ask them for their opinions, give them some useful information for conduct of audit work. And this arrangement has, I think, benefited both sides. We have been immensely benefited, and we understand that auditors also have been very much keen to have such engagements and utilize the information given. And we will hope that this interaction can be further improved in future so that this can be used as a means to exercise better control over the financial institutions' financial reporting. Broadly, these are the points that I just wanted to mention. Let me conclude by saying that we value the institute and the support of all its senior functionaries and the guidance and support that they give us from time to time. I would also like to thank Dr. Amarjit Chopra, who has been very kind to give us his expert guidance and support from time to time during the course of our consideration of various regulations or handling certain matters. And we would continue to hope that he will continue to extend that support to us. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that this webinar will be useful for everybody. And Reserve Bank is always available to the institute and all the auditor community because we see you as very close partners in achieving the outcome, which is common for both the institute and the RBI. The objectives are common, and that is why we need to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful, very inspiring speech for we all members. In presence of my president, my vice president, and my other colleagues, we can only assure you, sir, that at institute level, we'll try our best to be according to your requirement that whatever you feel from us, we'll update our members and we'll work hand by hand, joining your hands, whatever best we can do. And we are really thankful to RBI, the way these new norms have come. Even we know that so many other industries forums have forced you for revising these norms, but still you are very firm. So we are really thankful to you, sir. for giving such a wonderful policies for the benefit of our members. And proceeding further,
Prakashji,
before
Prakashji, if I
yes,
can start for a minute.
yes, please.
Yes. Sir, thank you very much for such a positive and such an enlightening sir, say address to us. This is for Rohit Jain, sir. Sir, we as I said in my address earlier, sir, we propose to work very closely with RBI. We totally agree with your last comment, sir, that both RBI and ICAI have common objective, and we shall do the needful on that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, EP sir. Before proceeding to inviting our chief guest of today's session, Mr. R.G. Vishwanathan ji, I will like to give his small introduction. Vishwanathan ji is 1987 batch Indian Audit and Account Service Officer with a master's degree from IIT Madras. His association with commercial undertakings has been vast. Besides having vast exposure to auditing government PSUs throughout his career, he was CFO and financial advisor in Oriental Insurance Company Limited for 5 years. During that period, our Amarjit Chopra ji was also central auditor of that company. During this period, he was also associated with many general insurance related IRDA reform agendas. He was also joint secretary and additional financial advisor in the Ministry of Defense for 5 years. During this period, he was financial advisor for DRDO, Air Force, and all strategic projects of MOD. He was also on the board of Bharat Dynamics, a listed PSU company, for 5 years, and on the board of Defense Private Sector Company, that is BrahMos Aerospace Limited, for 5 years. Currently, he is Deputy CAG of Commercial and the chairman of the audit boards. Over to Vishwanathan ji, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, very much.
Mr. Jambusaria, President ICAI, Mr. Jain, ED RBI, Mr. Mitra, Vice President ICAI, Mr. Babu Abraham, Chairman PDC, Mr. Prakash Sharma and Mr. Chitale, Chairman and Vice Chairman of the Banking Financial Service and Insurance Committee, and my old friend Mr. Amarjit Chopra from my Oriental days. It gives me great pleasure to be part of this virtual continuous professional education meeting. From the circular and the circulars which I've gone through, I understand the basic objective of issuing these circulars of RBI, the one dated 27/4/21 and the earlier circular which was issued in July 2015, is twofold. One is to streamline the procedure for appointment of statutory auditors, and more importantly, to ensure improvement in the quality of audit in the RBI regulated entities, which is what Mr. Jain emphasized about. Before I get into the circular itself, let me get into the spectrum of audit oversight we have for different categories of financial institutions, NBFCs today. I try to look at the larger picture from a government point of view. At number one level officially, we have around 9,500 odd NBFCs registered with the RBI, which is around as on January 31st, 2021. Now, there is the unorganized, unregistered and unregulated sector. Now, the number out there is anybody's guess. I mean, I'm sure people have tried to put a number to it, but we don't have an exact number. So our concern is there also. So let us try to understand the various levels of compliance and audit processes in the various levels of entities. At level one, I would say we have NBFCs, which are government companies. If you look at a number, there are 200 odd such companies, central government about 80 odd and state government about 120 to 130 odd. The procedure for audit oversight is pretty robust, is what we feel. Now, why do I say that? See, statutory audit of these NBFCs which are under government companies are done under the Companies Act Section 139 and 139(7). Now, for which the CAG has prescribed a criteria for eligibility, uniform tenure, rotation policy and review of performance. This is the complete loop of the audit oversight mechanism. this system can also loosely be called a double-blind system, wherein the company doesn't know which auditor is being appointed, and the auditor doesn't know which company he's going to. So this adds to a lot of credibility and strength to the auditing process. Then there is this additional safeguard in the form of supplementary audit by CAG and review of the auditor's report and performance. Incidentally, we don't stop there. We also review our statutory auditor, our CAG auditor's performance. So we try to keep the loop closed to ensure higher quality. In addition, the CAG separately conducts compliance audits for these entities, which cover areas of regularity, propriety, and probity, and performance audits, which cover areas of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Thus, I can say with a great degree of confidence, and this confidence is not only seeing the systems in India, probably seeing a couple of systems around the world, that the audit which we do of the NBFCs is very robust for government companies and government controlled companies. Now let's go to the second level. We have the financial institutions which are not government companies, like commercial banks, urban cooperative banks, and NBFCs, including the housing finance companies, with asset size of 1,000 crore and above. Also, deposit taking NBFCs fall in this category irrespective of their asset size. Now, the circular recently issued by RBI is applicable to all of them, and it takes care of issues like eligibility, uniform tenure, rotation, review of performance. It's a clear circular which gives a direction in this regard. I know there are points which the CA Institute have raised, which the RBI has taken views on. That's something which we can always work on. Now at level 3, we have the non-deposit taking NBFCs with the asset size below 1,000 crores, who have been given the option to continue with the extent procedure. Now, how robust the procedures of audit oversight in these institutions is something we all need to continue to engage with, because whether it's a small pawnbroker cheating somebody in a gram panchayat or a slightly bigger institution, when somebody gets cheated, financial basis, we somewhere between all of us, we need to control this. So we need to be aware of this. Now, as far as the circular is concerned, I would like to make 3, specific points on the circular. The first one is, as far as the CAG's role is concerned, with reference to financial institutions, I would like to say that the statutory auditors of the NBFCs, which are government companies, are appointed by the CAG. However, there is a footnote 11 in the RBI circular. It appears that the right of the CAG in case of these is only restricted to tenure and rotation policy prescribed by the CAG, which is actually not the position. So my bringing out this point is more in the nature of a clarification. Now, also, in other parts of the circular, that is page 7 of the circular, while taking into account and talking about the eligibility criteria on the basis of assets, minimum number of full-time partners, it should have been normally mentioned that it is not applicable for NBFCs for which statutory auditors have been appointed by the CAG. Here again, it's more in the nature of a clarificatory point, because we are dealing with a number of chartered accountants in the field who will be applying these. It's more in the nature of a clarification from my side. My third point, which I feel is the most important point with regard to this circular, is, as per the latest RBI circular, and I may be wrong on this, that the NBFC asset size has been kept below 1,000 crores. And people with that have been given an option to continue the extent procedure. I'm also aware that RBI in the past had classified different categories of NBFCs. They call it NBFC systemically important, NBFC microfinance, NBFC asset reconstruction, and NBFC infrastructure finance companies, etc. Now, when the NBFC systemically important were classified, I believe the range was 500 crores. Now, I was trying to understand the rationale, RBI's rationale for such classification at that time when you classified them as systemically important, was that the activities of such NBFCs will have a bearing on the financial stability and overall economy. Now, I would suggest, and you're most welcome to correct me if my knowledge is wrong on this, I would suggest RBI to review whether we need to cover such systemically important NBFCs, that is basically with the asset size up to 500 crores under the latest circular. Or you have some strong reasoning as to why you have kept it at 1,000 crores. Now, that's some point which I think we could deliberate on, or you could correct me if I'm wrong. But I would like to say a couple of things before I end. Particularly to this large chartered accountancy fraternity, particularly being this my first interaction with this community after I took over as Deputy CAG Commercial and Chairman Audit Board. In an economy like ours, which is not adequately mature, due to uneven playing fields, which was also mentioned, and varied players, self-regulation may not be the answer always. In a very matured economy, yes, self-regulation could be the answer. The second point is, in order to avoid exploitation of vulnerable population, mis-selling of products, over-indebtedness, there is a need for a strong governmental regulation and strong audit oversight mechanisms for all in the formal financial sector. Also, all of us need to worry about the informal sector and take steps to bring in more and more informal players in the financial sector into the regulated and the formal financial sector. Now, this is something which we should be concerned about. Now, third is that auditing is a painstaking and a high-risk profession. I think all of us are auditors here, all of us are connected with auditing, and we'll agree with this. I've always maintained this all my life, and Mr. Amarjit Chopra will bear me out. When I was the CFO, we would never hesitate in wanting to increase the auditor company. So, adequate remuneration for auditing and oversight services has to be encouraged by all of us, if not mandated. And I was just part of that discussion which took place a little earlier. If the RBI is thinking in terms of bringing in more norms for this from the CAG side, we will support it, because we feel the more the audit fee, we can hold the auditor responsible for more things. So I look at it from a control point of view, and we encourage. The fourth point I would like to mention before I end is robust and fair procedures for appointment, rotation, joint auditorship, evaluation of performance are the hallmark of a good audit oversight system, and we should all work towards it. From the CAG's point of view, when we do our appointment, we have been doing this joint auditorship for a long time. And let me also tell you, with my experience on boards and being in a company, being the CFO, joint auditorship was a great leveler for points which would come out from a particular auditor. You see, we have ever-changing rules and regulations which happen, new standards coming in, interpretation of it. So when you have just one auditor, sometimes they may become extra adventurous or extra careful. So having two auditors or joint auditorship helps in taking a more balanced view. That's been my view regarding joint auditorship, and I feel we should move towards joint auditorship into more and more organizations. This is useful for the system as such. Finally, I'd like to say that every time a scam happens in any of these financial institutions, I think all of us auditors and regulators, and I would say the chartered accountants, the CAG, the RBI, should get nervous and have sleepless nights. Was it something we missed pointing out? Was it something which we missed regulating? And this should continue to bother us. Every time a scam happens, whether it's Nirav Modi or whoever, my first question is, keep up in pointing out things in our audit if it was under our audit supervision. And I think this is how we all can improve in this oversight and regulation space. I am sure that all the would share. I mean, that the panelists would share his experience and insights for taking this discussion to another quality engagement. I am confident that these new will clear some emerging issues. My officers in the CAG are available
think some internet problem has occurred.
There's some internet problem at the last moment
Yes.
with him.
Yes, sir.
We'll wait for,
Wait. Yes, we will wait
So
for 1 minute.
let's wait for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, please, sir.
Am I now audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So just to close what I wanted to say, I said my officers are available for all the technical sessions to answer any queries. However, if you could send it to us in in the form of a mail or something, it would be more of a formal reply which you could circulate amongst others. I need to thank the institute. We need to work together. I need to thank RBI. All of us are now on the hot seat where we got to look at governance, we got to look at auditing, we got to look at regulation, and together we need to improve the ground level situation. Thank you so much, and I wish all of you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. We are very lucky today that we are having very inspiring words from both of you, from Rohit Jain Saab as well as from your side also. Your views about the joint auditors, your views about the other matters which are really seriously concerning for our professionals from your angle also, from our angle also. So, VP sir, will you like to say something?
Prakash, you can see the smile on my face. I think
Yes,
this
sir.
has been one of the best meetings I have attended with the RBI, Mr. Rohit Jain and with Mr. Vishwanathan. I think fantastic thoughts. They have been spoken well about the institute. And thank you very much, sir, for both the sirs for having laid stress on the importance of remuneration. And sir, see, as both of you have said, that ICAI, CAG, and RBI have common objectives. And sir, we shall do everything possible to live up to the expectation of RBI and CAG and ensure that our audit quality is always maintained, sir. And thank you very much for your kind presence, sir. This is not a formal vote of thanks, but I am really overwhelmed by the kind words that you have both spoken about the institute, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Before inviting our today's speaker, our learned past president of our institute, Honorable Amarjit Chopra ji, I will like to call my vice chairman of the committee, Chitle ji. He will invite. सर आपका म्यूट हटाइए म्यूट पे आप चितले जी.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, sir. Before inviting Honorable Past President, sir, I would like to just say a word or two about the speech of Honorable Rohit Jain ji and Honorable Vishwanathan ji. It was informed by Rohit Jain ji that during the COVID period, for the purpose of financial machines to be in order, financial engine being moved, RBI is taking several steps. As he has rightly recognized that even chartered accountants during this period risking their lives have really conducted audits. However, nobody has said that chartered accountant, a COVID warrior. Today we got that recognition from you, sir. So we are very happy that you have acknowledged that during COVID period also, many chartered accountants took risk and completed the audit. I also thank you that networks are being recognized by the RBI, and under the leadership of President and Vice President, sir, we are certainly trying to meet the expectation of our Honorable Prime Minister, sir, that let there be number of big firms, homegrown firms, and this recognition of network is really a step in that direction. So I really acknowledge this particular steps. And whatever expectations you have from the ICAI, Vice President has already acknowledged. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech. As far as Honorable Vishwanathan sir is concerned, he has also recognized this spectrum of audit, how important it is to build up the audit quality, and particularly robust and fair appointment procedures so that there is independence of chartered accountants is maintained. In fact, we had also discussion with Honorable Speaker Amarjit Chopra ji and sir, and he also believed in this particular independent appointments, and that will really go a long way in making audit quality better and the reporting more fair. At the same time, As far as this network is concerned, sometime we will seek your appointment and explain about the networking guidelines of our institute. And if networks are recognized for the purpose of C&AG appointment also, I think that would be a further step in realizing dream of our Honorable Prime Minister of having big homegrown firms. And thank you, Vishwanathanji. I also acknowledge presence of Honorable Ritrika Bhatiaji, who is with C&AG and also on our council. With these words, now let me invite Honorable Past President Amarjit Chopraji, who was President in the year 2010-11. However, as Rohit Jainji explained that, expected that he should continue to guide. Although 10 years ago, Chopraji was president of the institute, his thick association with the institute does not make us feel that the decade has passed. We feel that, it was only last couple of years he was around, and continuously he keeps guiding us. So his contribution is also recognized that for 4 years he was on the as a chairman of NACAS, the body appointed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. He also continues to be the member of National Financial Reporting Authority. He is serving the institute by being a member of the disciplinary committee, and considering his contribution to the profession, even the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Australia has conferred honorary membership on him, and International Accountants Association from London has also accredited him with membership. So thank you, Amarjit Chopra sir, for holding flag of the institute very high and continuing to be in our assistance and guidance. So over to you, sir, for your address.
Thank you very much, Piple Saab, the distinguished Honorable President of the Institute, Mr. Nihar Jambu Sariaji, the Honorable Vice President, Mr. Dr. Devashish Mitra, from Reserve Bank of India, the Executive Director of Mr. Rohit Jain ji, and of course, a very old friend, let me put it that way, Mr. R.G. Vishwanathan ji. I still remember that audit of Oriental Insurance, sir. I have not forgotten it. I really try to make a reference of that in some of my talks. When we took over in the first year as the auditor, there were certain qualifications, if you remember, sir. And we together took up a task that when we leave after 3 years or 4 years, we'll ensure that there are no qualifications therein. And each year we kept on improving on certain areas, and those qualifications were nil in the final year of our leaving. I think that is one way of improving the audit quality anywhere. That, and of course, I think it would not have been possible without the cooperation from the company, the Oriental Insurance, where Mr. Vishwanathan was heading the entire finance department at that time. Sir, I would like to inform you that presently we are the auditors again to the Oriental Insurance. At that time it was AS, now it is NDS. That is the only difference, basically. But very sweet memories, sir. And so far as this particular circular is concerned, and of course Ritika Bhatiaji is also there, Mr. Chitle, Mr. Prakash Sharma, and Babu Ibrahim ji. So far as this circular is concerned, I must say this is one of the most important steps which would have been possible to be taken by Reserve Bank of India or any regulator for that matter. Because I have been saying it for ages, not now, that joint audit has been there with the C&AG for ages. We never see an audit, a single auditor, whether it is ONGC or ONGC Videsh, or it is for that matter IOC or Steel Authority. We have rather 4 or 6 auditors in some of the organizations. All these organizations have been able to be audited very well, very frankly. There has been no dispute. There has been no, you can say, conflict of interest amongst any of the auditors at any point of time. And I personally feel that in all public sector banks, we have been having the concept of joint audit for a very long time, and it has worked out very well. In State Bank of India, presently we have 14 auditors, and that concept has also worked out well. So earlier in the banks like Punjab National Bank or Bank of Baroda, there used to be 6 auditors. Of course, now the auditors stand reduced because of certain reasons. What I'm trying to say is that having joint audit is probably one of the best things. And I must echo whatever has been said by Vishwanathanji, that you bring on table different viewpoints. You at times it becomes the leveler basically. That one person may feel no, it has to be done this way, but the other person has his own thought process and is able to convince the other person. I think that's a very nice thought. And at times, certain new thoughts are brought onto the table by one of the auditors, and you never know who can bring it. Even a junior auditor may be able to bring that particular thought process on the table. So I personally feel that joint audit process is probably one of the best thing that could have happened. Now with asset size beyond 15,000 crores, the joint audit is going to be mandatory in all those cases. And I think the best thing that Reserve Bank of India has been able to do, which has been opposed by some of the people tooth and nail, but I must say my hats off to RBI people this time. They have not succumbed to any kind of pressure. They have just held on to whatever they thought was their courage of whatever they felt convinced about. It has been their courage of conviction to see that the norms which were brought out on 27th of April 2021, those will stand implemented. I think that's the best way to happen. And of course, one of the areas which was a grey area to begin with for this particular year was with regard to the fact that this non-audit services concept, if non-audit services were to be rendered an year before or an year after, in that particular case, they have become very much flexible, and they have said that okay, since it is the first year, some people might have rendered those services in the earlier year. These may not be considered to be disqualification. I think again a very flexible approach, wherein they have not tried to be rigid. And I think the best possible way that they have tried to accommodate the people who might have conducted some kind of non-audit services. But sir, Rohitji, one thing that I will like to say, and again I must say my hats off to Reserve Bank of India, and that is what I have been saying in press also, that you brought the concept of network in this. If there are certain firms which are under a common network, and in that particular case, it will be applicable to the network itself, and it will not be applicable to that particular firm. Otherwise, people under the same network have 6 firms, 8 firms, or 10 firms. And if each firm could have continued with the number of these audits which have been prescribed, 4 of commercial banks and 8 of UCBs and 8 of NBFCs, I think the number could have been very large. So to my mind, sir, it has been a fantastic effort on the part of the Reserve Bank of India. The only thing probably one may like to say, and because Vishwanathanji is also here, well, how do we make it applicable to Jammu and Kashmir Bank, sir? Basically, I think that's one of the questions. Whether it will be applicable in all these respects, even to the bank like Jammu and Kashmir Bank. I think that's one question that I will like to put in. Whether it is with regard to rotation, or it is with regard to the number of auditors, or it's with regard to any other aspect for that matter. So that's one point that one will like to bring out. And one confusion that it may create, sir, somewhere, Rohitji, that probably will require some kind of a clarification. We are talking of SCAs, statutory central auditors, and SAs, basically, statutory auditors. Now, whether we are talking SCAs in terms of public sector banks alone, and SAs in the case of the commercial banks alone, or these SAs will include here the branch auditors also, because this is one question which has been asked by some of the people. Because when we talk of branch audits also, some of the people term them as statutory branch auditors for that matter. So whether these norms will be applicable there also in those cases, I think that's one. These are the two issues that one will like to raise at this particular forum. And one demand that has been pending from our side, sir, all these years has been with regard to the Ghosh Jalani committee report. That I think one will keep on saying that we need to have a relook at that particular aspect. Prakash ji, thanks a lot for providing this opportunity today. I would like to say that this move of harmonizing, I think the points of appointment, the tenure, the rotation, the requirement with regard to the commercial banks, with regard to the public sector banks, with regard to the UBCs, with regard to the NBFCs, is going to go a long way to streamline the process of the appointment of the auditors and bring in some kind of an independence of the auditors for that matter. And I think this will remove lot many anomalies which were earlier happening in the entire process of the appointment of the auditors. Of course, the regional rural banks are excluded therefrom. One thing that one may like to consider, sir, is that some of the regional rural banks today may be bigger than some of the commercial banks also. I can tell you, some of the smaller commercial banks or some of the UCBs may be much smaller compared to the regional rural banks, because regional rural banks have also consolidated. So whether we will like them also to be regulated in this particular manner, or we like it to be left to, right now for the time being, and as and when the other opportunity arises at that particular point of time, we will like to take that into the consideration. Now, so far as the NBFCs without accepting the deposits are concerned, below 1,000 crores, they may continue to follow the earlier procedures. But if they are accepting even the deposits, even if their size is below 1,000 crores, in that case, the new provisions will be applicable to them. Then again, it's a very good move, because the moment, of course, the point which has been raised by Vishwanathanji, that of 500 crore rupees, basically size, and systemically important NBFCs, whether this could have continued at 500 crore or 1,000 crore rupees, I leave it to the Reserve Bank of India and C&AG to discuss this matter out. But the point that one will like to say is that it is so good to note that if at all a company is accepting public deposits, even if its size is less than 1,000 crores, then they will have to go through this particular appointment procedure and the rotation procedure and the tenure procedure, because we are then treating them to be public interest entities, to my mind. I think that's the only way I can look at it, that we feel that they fall into the category of public interest entities, and this will bring in lot many NBFCs into this particular fold, because I personally feel that there are good number of NBFCs below 1,000 crore rupees size, asset size, wherein they do accept the public deposits, but were having their own appointment procedures. Now probably they will have to come to Reserve Bank of India for the appointments. Of course, NBFCs may not have to come to Reserve Bank of India, but this entire process of the appointment and entire process of the rotation, etc., will have to be followed by them. One more thing that one will like to say, sir, is that it is so nice to see that we have given the audit committees tremendous importance, both in the public sector banks as well as in the commercial banks for that matter, because the role of the audit committees will become dominant factor in the times to come. But I'm very sure, sir, and that's the way I look at it, that we might have laid down the a criteria that above 15,000 asset size, we may require 5 partners. 4 of them should be full-time FCS, basically with the firm. And between 1,000 to 15,000 crore rupees asset size, we may have 3 of the partners, out of whom 2 should be the full-time FCS for a period of 3 years. And up to 1,000 crores, we are saying that we will require 2 partners, out of whom 1 should be a full-time partner. And so far as the CISA requirements or DISA requirements are concerned, these are 2, 1, 1 each in all of these cases. But to me, sir, I am very clear, and one thing is going to happen. Every audit committee of the banks or UCBs or NBFCs may make the provisions more stringent. Because earlier, the requirements of the Reserve Bank of India in terms of the number of partners or the staff were far more than what we are laying down today, actually in terms of the asset size of the various organizations. So what I am feeling, I may like to have your comment, sir, or the comment of Prakashji or Vishwanathanji on this particular item. I personally feel that some of the audit committees may say that they may require 8 partners if the asset size is much larger.
Recording
being,
is on.
regulated by certain other regulator other than by the Reserve Bank of India. Some of the audit committees may say that even if they have rendered any of the non-audit services and any of the unregulated entities also, probably this could affect the independence of the auditors in those cases. And the audit committees might be able to lay down those criteria. The audit committees might be able to lay down certain other criteria to judge the independence. As one of the points which has been said here is that whether it is the case of NBFC or UCB or the commercial bank or public sector bank, if the firm has got a client who has got a very substantial exposure to the bank itself or to the entity, in that particular case, it might be considered that this could be a factor which would impair the independence of the auditor. So I think similarly, some other criteria may also be worked out by the audit committees, and the banks, of course, will have to generate the policies with regard thereto. One thing that one will definitely like to say, sir, is that when we talk of the number of the, you can say, the branches which can be audited by the statutory auditors, the central statutory auditors or the statutory auditors of the other entities, we have very clearly said that 15% of the gross advances are top 20 branches. But I personally feel, sir, that when we talk of the 20 branches, whether it is a case of State Bank of India or any other bank for that matter, I think this 15% will be a lower percentage. Rather, they are able to cover larger percentage of the advances in that particular case. Because 20 top branches always cover a very significant amount of the, you can say, business of a particular bank. And similarly, what has been said about the other commercial banks rather than the public sector banks is that 20 branches or 20% of the branches. Now, that is something which will be applicable in case of the smaller banks, basically, because they are probably the. One question that one will like to raise, sir, here is that are we trying to say that in some of the cases where the number of the branches could be 20 branches may not be able to cover the 15% of the advances in the case of some of the private sector banks, will it mean that 20% of the branches can be covered even by some of the branch auditors to ensure that this much advance is covered, or this could be covered only by the central auditors of the bank? That's one question that has been troubling me in my mind. So far as the audit fees are concerned, I think in the case of the private sector banks and in the case of the NBFCs, in the case of the UCBs, we are leaving it to the various audit committees for that matter. And I think that's one question that could be considered, that whether any guidelines can be given with respect to the fixation of the audit fee also in the case of the various private sector banks, or in the case of UCBs, or in the case of the NBFCs, because that could be some ground level issues, if at all, could be raked up, and could be actually some guidance could be provided in those matters. I think that would be a better thing to be done in those cases, sir. And in terms of the number of auditors, sir, when we talk of asset size of 5 lakh and above, we are talking of, we are saying that the number of auditors could be, we are laying down the maximum number of the auditors. Basically, we are not talking of the minimum number of the auditors. So we are saying that it could be 4. In 10 lakh and above, it could be 6. And up 20 lakhs to 50 lakhs, we are saying that there could be 8. And 50 lakh and above, it's going to be 12. So far as 50 lakh and above is concerned, I am not raising any issues, sir, because I personally feel any good bank will like to retain it to 10 to 12 of the auditors. But what we have experienced in the last at least 6 to 7 years, sir, or maybe more than that, that wherever earlier the number of auditors used to be 6, even some of the banks have been able to reduce it to 3 or 2. Even the bigger banks were able to reduce it to 3 or 2 or 3. So will it be possible at any point of time? That's only a question. It is a hypothetical question, though I'm not disputing whatever has been said. Whether we could also lay down the minimum number of the auditors, because minimum number, maximum number of 4 could also mean that we can have only 2 of the auditors. That's the point I'm trying to raise. Or we can have only 3 of the auditors. And similarly, in 10 lakh and above, we have said maximum you can have 6. So they can say that we can have even 3 of the auditors. So that's the point I'm trying to raise, sir, because this has been a point which has been actually raised in the past also, that some of the bigger banks reduce the number of the auditors to a quite an extent. Some of the banks reduced it almost to 50%, and some of the banks reduced it to lesser than 50% also. So that's one issue, sir, that I will like to raise, that when we are bringing in the concept of the joint audits, at least in the case of the bigger banks, whether we could also lay down that minimum this much and maximum, of course, this much. So that's the point I'm trying to lay down. But of course, I leave it to the Reserve Bank of India so far as this particular issue is concerned. Prakashji, I personally feel that I have covered whatever issues I had. But if at all you have any of the issues or we have any of the questions, one will like to answer that out.
Sir, Rohit sir, will you like to respond on any matter?
I'll just briefly say something. So,
Sir.
first of all, thank you, Chopra ji, for your valuable feedback, your insights into the way things will pan out based on the guidelines that have been issued, the possible implications, favorable as well as unfavorable, and the certain points that you have raised about certain issues which may need more clarity or which may actually be needed to further support the auditors. All these points are valid, are important, and we will certainly think about these issues. I would request if ICI could formally also refer these to us so that we examine these issues.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. We'll
in an official context also and provide the clarifications wherever necessary. But broadly, I would just like to say that See, before issuing these guidelines, we did in fact, a global analysis of what various jurisdictions have done across the world with respect to some of the matters which we have covered under these guidelines. And you would be surprised to know that globally, many of the countries, based on certain scandals that broke out, high value scandals that broke out, have been contemplating issue of such guidelines, and certain committees were set up. Committees recommended such kind of guidelines with the broad intent on these lines, but most of them have not been so far able to implement it for different reasons. And one reason could possibly be because there is a lot of resentment, or there are various lobbies at work whose interests would get affected on account of such kind of stringent guidelines coming out. There are business interests, there are auditor interests, there are various stakeholders' interests. Everybody is right in their own way of thinking. But to bring about change is never easy. And the change management also has to be seen in the context that it should not send wrong message across. It should not be disruptive, and the intent has to be clear, and various stakeholders' opinions and feedback has to be considered before guidelines of such a nature having such huge ramifications are issued. And that is why we followed through on this through various processes that were followed before finally issuing these guidelines. So various stakeholders were consulted, opinions were taken of different entities, of various institutions, and the idea was that we should not miss something, or we should not act in a manner which can actually lead to an undesirable outcome. So it was on the basis of an holistic consideration of all aspects involved that we were able to issue these guidelines. And we thank you for appreciating the intent of these guidelines. And any change is not easy, and there is bound to be certain operational challenges. Some requests were made for deferring these guidelines to next year. Some other aspects were also raised. But considering all these things, we have been a little flexible in terms of allowing the UCBs and NBFCs another additional 6 months to implement this. But for others, we believe that if the intent is clear and we mean business, the system will fall in line to start complying with these. It could have initial some problems and some challenges, but I think the migration to the enhanced level of requirements will happen, and it will be good for the entire system in totality. On some of the issues that were raised, our idea of late has been that we want to move away, the RBI wants to move away from micromanaging some of the operational aspects of auditors' role with the entities concerned. So we are giving more and more powers and authority to the boards of the entities and the audit committees. And we are ensuring that the boards and the audit committees have due representation of independent people, of people representing the auditor community, of people having experience, qualifications, and skill to understand the audit work, so that they in turn exercise necessary judgment and see that in the interests of the entity concerned, the auditors get a suitable voice, their concerns are heard and addressed timely. We don't want to get into a licensing Raj kind of pre-era kind of approach where we would determine how much can be lent by an entity, what could be, who the auditor should be appointed in each case. All of those things are not desirable in general, because the intent idea is that boards and audit committees should play their role. The broad guidelines have been laid out, the policy framework is outlined, and what is desired is also conveyed. After that, if any aberrations come to our notice, if something is not working satisfactorily, then anybody can approach us and say that this is not working well, or there is abuse of authority. or that the audit committees have not exercised their authority in a fair manner, or there has been bias or some other element, and we'll be open to investigating it and taking corrective actions. But we won't want to get into each individual case and decide who will audit, at what level, all of those operational aspects we want to remain away from. On some of the other things, we will certainly examine wherever you have said, and we will clarify it formally so that there is no miscommunication. Means something I say may be interpreted in different ways by different participants. So it is better that it is communicated in a formal way in black and white. So I will not get into those individual issues, but I can assure you that all the good suggestions that Vishwanathan ji gave, Mr. Amarjit Chopra gave, and all of you have given, all of these we will further see whether there's anything further needing to be done. Thank you very much.
Sir, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for explaining in detail and available in the whole session. We are really thankful to you. And I would like to request my vice chairman to propose formal vote of thanks.
Mr. Prakash, I just wanted to
Yes, sir, please.
give a little clarification here.
Yes,
First was regarding this Indian Postal Payment Bank and the J&K Bank, which is both being companies under the Companies Act. I think this circular very clearly brings out in the footnote 11 that the CAG procedure and the CAG methodology will follow. Of course, as far as appointment of the auditors are concerned, even though we name the auditors, we get concurrence from RBI for appointing the auditors. So that procedure is clear, Mr. Chopra. Now, as regarding the second issue which you mentioned about, these network companies and whether, the CAG should be looking at it as far as the empanelment procedure is concerned. Well, the network company concept is a step in the right direction. I don't deny that at all. But you also have to understand that this empanelment process which the CAG goes through, in which the CA Institute has also been and the Professional Development Committee has been a part of and has helped us a lot, has stood the test of time. You have to understand that, there are n number of people who look at this empanelment process. They give their complaints. We go through that. It's transparent. It's openly published. So we've gone through a robust procedure, which it is at present. And every step we've taken with all our stakeholders' views on it, on the empanelment process. Now, as far as this network companies, how they will fit in, I think it's a nascent stage now. We yet are to see the circular which is issued on what would constitute a network company, how will we verify whether that network company is actually in the network. So there are a lot of issues which we need to get comfortable with before we can introduce it as part of the empanelment process. And I'm speaking here from the CAG's point of view, wherein we put out a list which has some value in the market. People refer to that list to appoint auditors. So for whatever reason, we need to see how well this network process pans out in the next few years. And I'm sure we are open to any kind of improvements in the processes involved. Now, as far as the joint audit is concerned, I agree with one point which was mentioned, that we need to put the minimum number also. It's my personal view, I would say, not as much as a view of me being the deputy CAG, that we need to put a cap on that. Otherwise, it will become retrograde. The number of auditors will drop, and
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Joint auditorship will be lost. So I feel that's an important point. And the last point, I would react to what Mr. Jain was saying, that yes, RBI would not want to get into processes and do appointments. But the point which I want to make here is, my experience being on the board of a private company, being on a public sector company, also being in a public sector company as a person, as a CFO, and seeing n number of companies in the private sector over the years. is that, somewhere we all need to recognize this, that choosing an auditor when it becomes a process which has to be driven by the company alone, it could lead to some issues of conflict. Now, we may not be able to establish that, and we may spend all our times. And from RBI's point of view, what you said is right. If somebody complains to you, you'll act on it. But the point is, in these cases, nobody will complain. You see, because the AGM is too amorphous a body who appoints the auditors to raise a query on it. Normally it is the AGM who approves the appointment of the auditor. So it becomes too amorphous. It's a too amorphous a body to object to it. So while Mr. Jain's point is in its place, somewhere probably we need to make it more difficult for companies to choose their auditor whom they want and place them as the main auditor or their statutory auditor. As an audit profession, we need to move to a place wherein, we set such criteria, put more and more conditions that he has only a band of people, say 100 companies, from where he can choose from. He cannot pick and choose from everywhere. So somewhere we need to balance out these two issues. And I feel it's good for the profession. There is a huge, vast number of private companies which choose their own auditors. And all of them are listed, and you've seen how the share market goes up and down and how it decides the fate of n number of investors. So it's exceptionally important that the auditor of that company is somebody who has been appointed in a rather fair process. So I just want to leave this thought with all of you. I'm not saying the kind of methodology we follow in the CAG for government companies is the panacea for all companies. No. This is government company. The government is keen to govern the way they want to, and that's why the Companies Act says that the CAG will prescribe the procedure. So we are doing that in one place. Now, as far as the private sector is concerned, or the other companies are concerned, which are RBI governed, maybe we need some methodology by which auditor appointment is not only in the hands of the AGM and the audit committees. Now, this is a very big thought I have thrown up to you. Please give it a thought. And I think it's good for the auditor community to be placed even in a private company with a little more of independence and strength to say what they want to. Thank you.
Chopra sir wants to say something. Yes, sir. Please.
I think Vishwanathan ji has raised something which we wanted to say, very frankly.
Sir.
I think in 2011 we succeeded as an institute that under Mr. D.K. Mittal, when he was the secretary, secretary of the financial services basically, a committee was constituted having representatives from C&AG, having representatives from Reserve Bank of India, IBA and Ministry. And I can tell you, Rohitji, that was one system which worked very well. And all people, none had any complaint whatsoever.
Yes, sir.
It ensured independence. It also ensured that the senior most firms actually kept on getting the work. There's no doubt about it. And all the criteria which had been laid down by the Reserve Bank of India, that was duly followed. I think whatever we may say, sir, I have written even in yesterday's one of the articles that what is more important is how do we ensure the independence of the auditor. I think that is very, very key. Because the key word will be ultimately ensuring the independence of the auditor. Now, whatever we may say, I think whether it is public sector bank or it is the commercial bank under the private sector, if some committee can be constituted at the government level, I will not say Reserve Bank of India exclusively doing it. I don't want, because as a regulator, then it becomes a problem. But if the ministry does it with a representative of RBI, IBA, and you can say C&AG.
CAG was also involved.
C&AG was also involved. It will be a very good combination, sir, and it will work wonders so far as the independence of the auditors is concerned. That's all I will like to say.
Very true, sir. That's very true.
And in the case of C&AG, sir, I have one suggestion which I will like to make to you since we are on this. I think the concept of the head office, sir, you will have to see what constitutes head office. because the kind of practices which have crept in into the profession in the name of the head office, we have someone has 10 partners firm, but in the head office there is only one partner, because in that particular place the head office is shown because they can get work only on that basis. I think this entire concept of the head office, somewhere or the other, institute I think in consultation with C&AG will have to look. Even institute should be able to lay down that if you do not have this minimum strength of the staff, or minimum this strength of the partners, or this minimum revenue at the head office, you can't treat it as an head office, because that will mitigate lot many other problems, sir. And I can tell you some of the practices will come to an end. That's the request that I would like to make both to the institute as well as to the C&AG, sir.
That's very true, sir. A wonderful point you have raised, sir. Definitely. And we will discuss this thing, and on behalf of PDC, we'll go and meet Vishwanathan Sahab also, and like to give them formally also. That's it. Anything else, VP sir, will you like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Prakashji. You see, regarding the head office point that Amarjit Chopra ji has raised, yes, there is some this thing. There is always some meat in that point. I am sure we shall discuss this matter. Regarding the appointment of auditors to be done by a body which he is saying that regarding RBI, I think Rohit Jain sir also knows, and Amarjit Chopra ji also knows, that bank branch auditors, we have been arguing so many times over the years that the appointment should be done by RBI at least. That so as to ensure that there is an independence in the process of the appointment in the bank branch auditors. We have been speaking about that point. But generally, yes, on the appointment process, that a good appointment process will enhance independence. About that, I think we have no doubt, and we will totally be in agreement to discuss these points further with both RBI and CAG. We are totally open to discussing these points.
Thank you, sir. Over to Chitlaji sir for formal vote of time.
Yes, thank you, Chairman sir. I think independence of auditor is of supreme importance, and in the recent past, whatever things have unfolded, it has really underlined. And we are very happy that this particular point was discussed threadbare, and the outcome was also suggested. I am sure that as far as the coordination with the ministry, with RBI, with C&AG is concerned, under the leadership of President and Vice President, sir, we will certainly make. As far as this networking is concerned, C&AG wants to have certain further information, so that definitely under your leadership and with the leadership of PDC, we will also appraise them what is our concept of networking and how it works, so that ultimately both institute as well as all the stakeholders, they are interested in having independence of auditor, not only in performance but also in appointment process. And really one would appreciate that once the appointment is done in an independent manner, it will give more impetus for the purpose of auditors to really carry out audit and report whatever findings are there. He will not be under any undue pressure whether to report a particular thing or not to report. So these are the discussions which will certainly carry forward offline. As far as Honorable Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India, Rohit Jain is concerned, he has really appreciated the working of the profession. His expectation from the profession about the quality, about the expertise, they are definitely well received by all the audience, and I am sure that the Institute, through various processes of training, webinars, workshops, will certainly try to sharpen the skill sets of professionals. Honorable Vishwanathan ji has also talked about these aspects, and I'm sure that Institute will definitely incorporate this. Amarjit Chopra ji, our former president, has also dealt with this topic in connection with NBFC specifically, and also generally in case of appointments of auditors. And I think these discussions will go a long way in creating a particular path for the purpose of road, which will ultimately reach to the goal of independence and reinforcing the expertise and reporting by professionals on financial statements. Whatever expectations are made of the professionals being chartered accountants, I am sure that they will be able to shoulder those responsibilities. And the speaker stated that we are partners in the process of this audit and running the engine of economic engine. And let me conclude with the remarks of our former President Abdul Kalamji that chartered accountants are partners in nation building. I am sure that under leadership of President and Vice President and with cooperation and guidance of all the stakeholders, we will definitely leave this particular expectation on day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Isanji. Thank you, Rohit Jain ji. Thank you, Chopra ji.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.